Now, last thing I want to say is, I'm for President Obama because his budget adds up. People, you know, in the last 50 years there have been 5 surpluses. When you hear the Republicans talk about how frugal they are, let's not forget, we never had big structural debt in this country in times of economic growth before 1981. Never. We'd run these little bitty deficits, and we were already investing more with a long-term payout, and that didn't amount to a hill of beans. We tripled the debt in the first 8 years of the 80s. Then we increased it 150% again. So by the time I became president, in the previous 12 years, the debt had gone up 4.5 times. So then I brought it down for you. Then they doubled it again when I left office. Let's not forget this. And how did they do it? By promising you that if we just cut taxes on upper income people enough, there'd be so much growth, all would be well, don't worry about it. So now, we're doing this again, where the president is giving you a budget. He has already agreed with the Republicans to $1 trillion worth of spending cuts, already enacted. The budget reduces the debt by $4 trillion over the next 10 years. $2.50 in spending cuts for every dollar in new tax increases. And that's those of us in higher income groups who got most of the tax cuts of the last decade and virtually all the economic gains of the last decade to pay our fair share by simply paying what we did when I was president. That's all they do. And now, what does their budget do? Remember, they had that debt clock at their convention. You remember that? Talk about how terrible this was. First thing they do is to say, well, we need to spend $2 trillion more than we are going to spend on defense, and more than the Pentagon says we need. And we need $5 trillion tax cut, which makes President George W. Bush look like a piker. He must have been asleep at the switch to only add $1 trillion to the national debt from these unpaid for tax cuts. And you say, okay, like Jerry Maguire, remember that movie, that sports movie? Show me the money. Where are your numbers? You're the business guy. See me about that after the election. I can't believe, who can take this seriously? Here's my budget, although it's not. It's a hide and seek budget. See me about that after the election. The reason you're being told to see me about that after the election is there's only 3 options. If you want to repeal tax exemptions to pay for all these tax cuts, you've got to cut the tax exemptions to the middle class, and Governor Romney says he won't raise those taxes. Or you could do what they've always done and just let the deficit explode again. It's not a problem now because interest rates are low, but when the economy grows, it'll be a big problem. And the third thing is you could do is just gut the federal budget. Gut funding for education, which will hurt Youngstown schools and preschool and Youngstown State University. Gut that student loan program. You can gut funding for research and development. I spent $3 billion of your money to sequence the human genome. You know how much economic activity is generated in the last 20 years or 12 years? $790 billion. They have not disavowed. They intend to cut Medicaid by 33% over 10 years and give it back to the state of Ohio. It may be the cruelest thing of all. First, because Medicaid provides medical coverage to lower income kids, most of them in working families. Yeah, some of them are African American, some of them are Latino, some are Asian, some are of Middle Eastern background. Most of them are white folks. This is not a racial deal, folks. This is an equal opportunity hosing. to two other groups. First, elderly people on Medicare who've spent all their money and can't afford to be in a nursing home except Medicaid pays for it. You really think we ought to cut it by a third and send it to Ohio and just blame the states and say, your mother can stay and your mother can't? And finally, maybe worst of all, Medicaid provides health care to help for disabled children in homes that are not poor, not close to poor, sometimes middle class, even upper middle class homes, because it costs a lot of money to take care of a child with an autistic condition, a child born with cerebral palsy, a child born with muscular dystrophy, a child born with developmental disability. A third to give these that are tax cut, it is wrong. It is wrong. And it's still being updated outside. So Barack Obama has a better budget plan, a better education plan, a better health care plan, a better jobs plan, a better energy plan. And it's consistent with our values. We're all in this together, not you're on your own. It's consistent with good economics, shared prosperity and shared responsibilities, not trickle down. It's consistent with good policy making. Do it on the evidence, not ideology. And it's consistent with good budget making. Do it on arithmetic, not illusion.